Yes.
Christopher Luxon,
Yes.
our hairless leader, was on breakfast this morning, and they started off with chatting about if him and his colleagues, his coalition colleagues, met over the weekend. And, there was a lot of talk about getting on with things quickly and getting off to APEC, and where are they all sitting right now? So let's have a bit of a listen to that.
Be with you. Oh, look, I had contact with all parties, actually, but we're making good progress. We've come a long way, I think, in the 10 days since the special votes were counted. This week's an important week. We want to bring it home and get the job done. And so it's important that I focus on that. That's the must-do job. I think that's why it's unlikely I'll head out to APEC on Wednesday evening, but we'll see how we go. But I think that's probably the most, I'd sooner be here, getting the job done, forming a strong government.
Yeah, that's...
First point. Do you notice what he said there? Forming a strong government. So I assume he's given up on a stable government because he's now understood that with Winston Peters and David Seymour, he can't have a stable, because remember, it's been strong, stable government to this point, but it's just strong government now. Stable's gone away. Now, to be fair, I am taking the mick a bit later on. He does say strong, stable, but he has another one in a minute. Maybe I won't stop it just so you guys can check it out. He actually almost gags on the word stable. And I went, no, Freudian, perhaps? He's like, strong government. So maybe there's some psychology going on at the moment where the word stable is not fitting quite so well as perhaps it once was. Just wondering out loud, Chewy.
I'd sooner be here, getting the job done, forming a strong government.
Yeah, that sort of seemed a bit of a change in tune for you on APEC. You were only saying yesterday that it was about making sure you had good bilateral meetings and a good opportunity to say to the world that New Zealand is open for business again. It seemed to be an important meeting to you.
Well, I'd love to go. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to go because I do want to signal.
Yes, sir.
New Zealand's open for business again.
Yeah, apparently we were shut down.
Was it closed for business, was it?
Yeah, no, Fonterra didn't make record.
12...
Fonterra didn't make record profits last year, apparently. We've been closed for business.
I think that was the same for exports all over.
There's no stories there's no stories in the press today about the profits banks are making. We've been closed. We've been completely closed. And it's the communist state of Jacinda. Remember? Have we not been? We're not aware of that.
That's right. We were just trading beans with each other.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That New Zealand is open for business, and I do want to be able to build rapport and relationship with those key world leaders. But actually, there'll be another APEC, and there's other ways in which I can go about doing that. But actually, my job right now is, as I say, I'm not selecting flatmates to go live with. I'm making sure that we've got a strong gay government, and that means that. I want to make sure that we've got the right
strong gay
in place through the
government.
course of this week.
Have your flatmates all been in one?
Yep.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we've got the right agreements in place through the course of this week.
I know.
As I say, I'm not selecting flatmates to go live with. I'm making sure that we've got a strong gay government, and that means that I want to make sure that we've got the right agreements in place through the course of this week.
Have your flatmates all been in one room yet?
No.
Look, again, we don't get into it.
No,
we don't get into a room to it. Yeah.
No, but they haven't. Because the other thing is, remember, I said this way ago, it's fair enough if he doesn't want to, say everything through the media, but the other people are. They have not all been in the same room yet. So this has taken 10 days so far, and they haven't, all three of the parties got together in one room to nut it out.
Can you imagine that they're all sitting in different boardrooms by themselves, and that there's just parliamentary services people just running notes from one end of the building to the other?
Well, at the moment,
they can't put all three in the same room.
I think Winston today was in Wellington and Seymour was in Auckland. So that'll be a long run. But I think that's what was going on at the moment. So, all right, we've got 30 seconds of this clip to go.
This was a priority.
Yeah.
They were going to do it in days, and the special votes were taking too long.
Yep.
And taking the piss.
They are indeed.
To any of that, but there'll be a time when we will come together. But I can tell you they are in conversation, which is good. And there is goodwill and good faith from all teams as we.
Now, point of order, Your Honour. Goodwill and good order from all teams, to me, is evidence finally that when he told Paddy Gower, I don't know Winston Peters, this is evidence that he didn't know Winston Peters. Because if anyone's not using goodwill, it's Winston Peters. So if he thinks that everyone's using goodwill, it proves to all of us that it's true. He doesn't know Winston Peters. Because that's not a Winston Peters characteristic in any way, shape, form whatsoever. Or Luxon's lying. I don't know which one of those it could be, though.
try and work our way through a huge amount of complexity. And to give you a feel for it, I mean, basically you take each party's manifestos and you end up debating and discussing each element of it. And the good thing is that by and large we have massive agreement on we want to grow the economy and make it more productive, we want to sort out law and order, we need to deliver better public services, you know, strengthen our democracy, all that good stuff. The way in which we go about it is different by each of the parties. And that's what we're trying to understand as we go through.
Yeah, I just wanted to...
And that's the conflict. The way we go about it is different. And we might show a story later on where there is actually conflict. Anything you want to comment on for the first thing there, Chewy? Because we've got more clips to play.
He obviously doesn't know what he's doing, because the way you do it is you go, well, I need to listen to about 6% of what New Zealand First wants, and I need to listen to about 8% of what ACT want. And I think going forward with some of these things that they've stuck their flags in and go, this is a bottom line for us. You know, let's talk about ACT's renegotiating around the principles of the treaty.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have a mandate for that. 8% is not enough to put something like that on the chopping block.
Very interesting today to hear. We had in the weekend, I think last week, we talked about this last week on Thursday. Helen Clark has come out, Jim Bolger has come out, all saying this would be a travesty for New Zealand if this kind of referendum came out today. Chris Finlayson comes out today, another National Party senior politician comes out today going, what are you talking about? Now, I am actually going to talk about this in another clip when we're talking about what's happening in the UK and a warning signs for New Zealand around race issues. So I'll get to that then. But yeah, it seems the only person or people that aren't aware of how bad this will be for New Zealand are David Seymour, his cabinet and his funders. They're about the only ones. But they may actually, no, to be fair, they may know it's going to be bad for New Zealand, but not care. That's another possibility as well. All right, next clip is, now this starts to get into some of the interesting stuff, and this is what I talked to Craig Rennie about in a pre-recorded conversation. We want to know if the tax cut policy is still alive, right? That's what we want to know, because Winston, we all hear is going poo-poos all over the foreign buyers ban, and that's needed for the tax cuts. So is the tax cut policy still alive? That's kind of question number one. Question number two is the policy exactly today, exactly as it is, as National promised during the campaign, and will you pay for it exactly the way now as you promised in the campaign? That's the gist of this part of the conversation. Let's have a listen, shall we? Oh, I should bring some pictures up. Here we go. Let's have a listen.
All right, in terms of your talks, is your tax cut policy still alive?
As I said, we're committed and we're going to deliver tax relief for lower middle income New Zealanders. That's what we talked about in the election. That's our commitment to lower middle income workers, and that's going to happen.
Okay, so we talked about that in the election, so we're going to stick by it. That's the first point.
Be really clear, is the back pocket boost still on the table in its exact same form as it was proposed and advertised by your party during the election?
So that's a pretty easy yes or no, isn't it? Yes, it is, or no, it's not.
We're not going to get an easy answer, are we, though?
We'll see what he's got to say about that whole thing.
As it was proposed and advertised by your party during the election.
Well, again,
campaign.
I'm not going to get into any of those coalition conversations.
But people voted for you on the basis
and I'm telling you
that
they're going to be delivered. They're going to be delivered.
In the same form as you promised?
So he's basically doing exactly now what he did pre-election. They're going to be delivered how? I'll tell you about that later. So he's actually doing, right now, what he got criticised for doing 2 months before the election, and then they came up with their answer as to how they're paying for it. And today he's gone back to, Now, he's not literally saying, I don't know, but that's the basic summary of it, because Mr. Luxon, you told us how you're going to pay for it. All we want to know is that how you're still going to pay for it? Oh, I'm not going to get into that today. That's negotiation. Oh, so it won't be. No, it's going to be exactly as it was in the election. Oh, so how are you going to pay for it? I'm not going to get into that. It's this circular conversation that he's saying it's going to be what we promised. How are you going to pay for it? Not going to tell you that now, but it's going to be the same. But how will you pay for it? Not going to tell you that now, but it's going to be the same. Oh, so it's exactly the same. Not going to tell you that now. It just goes round and around and around. Keep listening.
To be delivered, and they're going to get tax relief, as we talked about in the election campaign. That's what they need to know, and that's what New Zealanders want to know. Everything else as to what we're talking about through those coalition arrangements and negotiations, that stays in those rooms.
Sure, but I'm asking you just to commit to it being the same proposal that you put to voters.
I'm committing to delivering tax relief to lower middle income New Zealanders for sure.
Okay,
absolutely.
So how non-committal is that? Is it? We're just looking for you to say yes, it's the same. I'm committing. So again, right? What he just said could be fulfilled with a $1 a week tax cut. Because what he said then was, I am committed to delivering tax cuts too. He didn't say the back pocket thing is still up. He didn't say any of that sort of stuff. He just said, so it could be $1 a week. And then he's fulfilled his promise now, but obviously he hasn't fulfilled his promise from pre-election, Chewy.
It's the same thing. It's because it's based on wishy thinking, and it's based on a house of cards that the other two are going to kick out from under him. You know, the math doesn't work, and now he start hammering the line of we're going to deliver tax relief for low and middle income, the squeezed middle, which we know is bullshit. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not for you. You're not gonna see it. It's not what they said it was. You know, it had to be a very specific combination of factors that meant you were getting that, but they didn't say that. They said it was all for low and middle income, and you're all going to get this and that sort of thing. It's not. He can't fund it. He's going to start swinging an axe to do it, and we're going to be saying "I told you so" for 3 years.
And remember, minimum wage earners who at the moment get, with not thinking about KiwiSaver or student loans, get around about $600 a week in your hand. Remember, his big plan to make you be so much better off is $610 a week. It's $10 a week. Just remember, everyone poo-pooed old Labour, and fair enough, about their $5 a week savings on fruit and veggies. Well, basically, you minimum wage earners are basically the same with these guys. I mean, yeah, it's 10 versus 5, but if you bought more veggies, you'd save more. So just remember, we pointed this out. We told you it's up to. We pointed the numbers out, and the low and middle income. So low would be minimum wage, $10 a week. That's what they promised to deliver. So as we just put up on the previous text, it's not that far off $1 a week anyway, is it, Chewy? Not really.
No.
All right, we'll keep going.
Those tax cuts be funded by a foreign buyers tax?
Again, not going to get into any of that, because I know as soon as we start that conversation, those are conversations we have in fairness and with good faith between the leaders.
Yeah, that was a really big talking point.
No, see, that's not true. In fairness to the voters, because that's what the voters voted for. I mean, not me, not Chewy, maybe not many of you watching, but overwhelmingly the biggest party got voted. As a part of the reason they got voted for were because of the foreign tax buyer promises you made. So it's actually not about you and Winnie and David Seymour Rimmer. It's actually about the voters. But all of a sudden, that goes away. All of a sudden, that goes away.
CEOs don't need to worry about what the consumers care about. They do not have to worry about that. They have to worry about their board members and their shareholders.
And the companies they're
we've
merging
got a
with.
CEO in charge of the country now.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a flavour of what we're going to get. You'll get told eventually, maybe.
All right.
And if it's wrong, I never said it.
Though people voted for you on the basis that you had made these promises to a certain extent.
Yes.
You are the majority party in these negotiations.
Sure, and Anna, what I'm saying to you really clearly is I'm going to deliver that tax relief to low and middle income New Zealanders, as we talked about during the campaign.
But you can't commit to whether it's funded by a foreign buyers tax.
What's important to New Zealanders is that they know in a cost of living crisis that they're going to get tax relief, they're going to keep more of their own money, and they're going to be able, and we're going to deliver that for them.
Is that
So, again, it's going to be delivered as we promised in the election. Are you going to deliver it the same way? Not going to get into that. There's a really important part about this as well. And I'll tip our cap, Chewy, because we talked about this. He keeps saying what is important to New Zealanders is. What is important to New Zealanders is another pace, a bit further in this conversation. He talks about the outcomes Kiwis want. And he talks about is the tax relief. I disagree. And we talked about this. Remember, for every tax break you get, money comes from somewhere else. If the National Party now can't pay for their tax cuts with the foreign buyers ban, thanks to Uncle Winnie, and they have to go and decimate the public sector to fulfill that criteria, what do the public want? What do New Zealanders want? $10 a week, or a decimated public sector? Money out of, and I'm not saying that this is what they're going to do, but this is the thing you got to think of. Money out of education, money out of health, money out of beneficiaries' pockets to give you $10 a week. New Zealanders want to know what they're giving up, Mr. Luxon, for the outcome, not just the outcome. Would that be fair, Chewy?
Yeah, he's not speaking for this New Zealander. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I care about.
He does say something a bit later on that I do support and we do like. Look, we're going to be fair. He comes up with a policy that I really like, and we'll get to that as well. Let's just play the last 15 seconds of this.
Non-negotiable for you?
Delivering tax relief for low and middle income New Zealanders, absolutely, and that's something that actually all parties we've been, they understand where we're coming from on that.
Is the foreign buyers tax a non-negotiable for you?
Again, not getting into any of the component parts of that, but what I'm saying to you, and you can be assured about, is the outcome is what matters most to New Zealanders, which is that we're going to deliver low and middle income tax relief.
The outcome is what matters most to New Zealanders. Horse shit, because if the outcome is $10 a week in my pocket, but that costs, I'm being exaggerative here, I'm exaggerating, but that costs a quarter of the money out of the public sector, then no, it's not what I want. So it's not just about the outcome, it's what New Zealanders are giving up for that outcome as well, Chewy.
Look, every time he says that it's for low and middle income, my mind goes to, you are going to keep saying that under pain of death, because you know that people see right through it, and when we definitely don't want to talk about the tax cuts that the wealthy are getting, the tax cuts that his contributors are getting, the people that have put hundreds and thousands of dollars into the National Party in the last year and a half.
Yeah,
they didn't do it out of the goodness of their hearts.
Yep,
they did it because they knew that they would get it back.
Next part of the conversation, they do go a bit more into it. They get into a part of the conversation about how New Zealand First does not want a foreign buyer's tax, which is true. Just so we're clear, New Zealand First was a signatory to the legislation alongside Labour to ban foreign buyers. So the last time they were in government, they signed the legislation banning foreign buyers. We know that's not part of... Did you hear that?
Yes.
The screaming. They're playing Fortnite.
So good.
I've got the door shut as well. I lost my train of thought completely there. That they were signatories to that. And it's been Winston's shtick for 20 years. You know, foreigners buying houses, they're not going to do it, right? So this part of the conversation is New Zealand First doesn't want a foreign buyers ban. And I want you to listen to what he says about we've all made comments before the election. He, I think, basically shows his hands by saying, ugh, we all bullshit before the election, but now it's time to move on. That's how I read it. Listen out to it. We all, what did he say? He goes, we all made comments before the election. And
you didn't expect those to be true.
Yeah.
You didn't think I was telling you the truth, you fucking idiots.
That's the vibe. That's the vibe.
New Zealand First doesn't want a foreign buyers tax, does it?
Again, I'm not getting into any of that. I know that's frustrating.
No,
for us,
I've got comments
saying,
that they've publicly made about it, though.
Sure, we've all made public comments before an election, and now we go into a coalition conversation and we try and reconcile our party positions.
So, in other words, we all make comments before the election, we go into coalition and we try and reconcile. In other words, nothing we've said will necessarily go through, because now we have to reconcile our party positions. Therefore, maybe not. Doesn't matter. I mean, remember how definite they were on this? But, we all made promises before, but now we basically have to get them across the line in our coalition talks. That's what he's literally saying.
Comments that they've publicly made about it, though.
Sure, we've all made public comments before an election, and now we go into a coalition conversation and we try and reconcile our party positions. We have different approaches to dealing with some of the challenges that we all are facing and the goals that we want to deliver on, and that's why this process is the process. But what I'd say to you is, with respect to giving tax relief to low and middle income New Zealanders, that's what we're committed to doing.
Is this a sticking point with you and New Zealand First
Yes.
over the foreign buyers tax, or
Yes.
how you make these tax cuts work?
Yes.
Well, look, as we go through everyone's manifestos and we go through line item by line item, the reality is there's...
As we go through, there's something in the back of his throat a little bit there, thinking about it not getting across the line, maybe just a little bit.
Lots of things that we have. We're trying to understand where they're coming from, where we're coming from, and in that conversation, that process, that's how we reconcile our positions and actually get to a better place.
So is New Zealand sticking on this? They don't want the foreign buyers tax?
Again, not getting into any of that. Those are conversations that happen in a room, and again, there's a huge amount of material. If you look at our respective policy documents, manifestos that that we're going through, it's huge. You know, it's a pretty bold endeavour, and that's what you need to do because, as I keep saying, I'm not selecting flatmates here. I'm selecting partners that I want to be in a coalition government with for many, many years that gives strong, stable government to New Zealanders so that we can go to work for them and actually get things improved and done for New Zealanders. That's what it's about.
New Zealand
Partners that I want to be in coalition for many, many years. Lies. You're lying. I'm calling you out. You don't want to be in partnership with both of those guys for many, many years. You want to be in partnership with both of those guys for the shortest amount of time possible. Then you want to try and get fewer partners. That's what I'm calling out. So there you go, Chewy. We've all made comments before elections. You know, now we're going to have to go and negotiate them. We'll see what happens. So every promise that's been made, we'll see. Every reason that people have elected these people in, other than we hate Labour, right? That still gets fulfilled. But any reason that they're voting for them, rather than just voting against Labour, is all up in the air and potentially out the door right now. Literally.
Hey, he really hammered that term of I'm not selecting flatmates. How many flatmates do you think he's ever selected? Would it be fucking none?
This
is just it's CEO gobbledygook. Like, it's politicians get a lot of stick for how they talk and how they duck and dive in questions and that sort of thing. But this is something completely different. This is CEO talk. This is, we don't need to tell you anything. It doesn't matter what you voted for. It's now less about the percentage of the country that voted for me, ACT and New Zealand First, and it's more about just me, Winston and Seymour.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not going to be I'm going to give you 8% of what you want or 6% of what you want. The risk there is he needs to form a government, and at the moment there isn't one. Everything's on pause until he does, and Winston's going to count on that, right? I'm just going to drag the chain until I get what I want. And I know if I drag this out, Luxon's going to look worse and he's going to cave in to more of the things that I want.
Yep, 100%.
Seymour won't because he's a puppy dog. But, yeah, Winston, he doesn't give a fuck. He'll go ride a horse and do some fishing over the break. See you in January.
I know. It's interesting hearing Luxon today talking about, well, we're going to be working right up until Christmas. We're going to be working right up until Christmas. Well, you may not have a government before Christmas if you don't fucking pull finger, sunshine.
Well, Chippy got re-sworn in as I tell you what. Okay, so because this has dragged on so long, the procedure is that Chippy gets re-sworn in so he can do the duties of a prime minister, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to know what the reaction was in the more conspiracy-minded corners of the internet? Telegram lost their fucking minds.
Did they?
It's a conspiracy. Of course it's a conspiracy. Luxon's not the true prime minister. It's Chippy pulling the strings behind the curtains. It's all a great man, it's amazing. Those guys are giving themselves ulcers.
We're going to move on to one other part of this conversation. I really want to show you this because you know how sometimes you talk about Matthew Hooton, you say, Comrade Hooton. Well, this is the moment that you can say Comrade Luxon. Literally a moment you can say it. And this just goes to show how thinly veiled their attempts at being like authentic neoliberals are. Let me play you a bit first of all, and then I'll explain.
On to prescription fees, the National Party committed to scrapping the fees-free plan. We had them on this morning, pharmacist group, that said actually it's made a huge difference. Do you still believe that making it only available for community services cards and gold cards is the right way to go instead of a universal fees-free? Well,
I do think having it targeted in the way that so that people like you and me actually can pay the $5 prescriptions. Frankly, having some boundaries around that, around making sure people on community services card, the gold card, as we said, and also people who spend more than $100, a family that spends more than $100, then it's all subsidised.
But pharmacies are saying it's making them the tax.
So Chewy, now sorry, I was just letting the dog in there. That was up for a second. When you have something that let's just use blunt words, the poorest don't have to pay for, that the wealthiest have to pay for, and then you use that money from the wealthiest wealthiest to fund 13 other cancer treatments, that's called a wealth tax. So Christopher Luxon is saying, because he's specifically saying those that can afford to pay for it should pay for it. Then we're going to take their money and we're going to put it into the health system to pay for cancer treatments. Now, this is the definition of a wealth tax. Christopher Luxon is proposing a wealth tax. The poorest don't pay, the wealthiest do pay. Then we take the wealthiest money and we put it towards stuff that supports and looks after everybody. Christopher Luxon is, in this instance, a socialist. And this is where we get to show well, you can do what you want to, but how we're consistent. I'm for this. This is fine. I'm fine with this. I'm fine that millionaires can pay $5 at the chemist and that people on benefits can pay nothing. And I do not accept the pharmacists who are saying, oh, we have to be the taxmen now, because you know what? When students go to the movies, they pay a different price than someone who's not a student. You know, we do it all over the place. There's all sorts of situations where when I used to work for I used to do the advertising for a vegetable place. And on Wednesdays, gold card people got 5% off. It's not a problem. So the beat up by the pharmacist is I'm not going to have a bar of that. The big thing about this, Chewy, and you can either comment or we can keep trucking, is this is the dictionary definition of a wealth tax. Luxon is pushing it, yet he is against the wealth tax. Therefore, any other of his policies where the wealthy can pay more and the poor can pay less, if he doesn't carry through on it, he becomes a hypocrite. Your thoughts, sir?
Becomes. Interesting.
Being generous.
So this is the thing. Like we've talked about him having bumper sticker policy and that sort of thing. At first blush, it sounds fine, right? If you are poor enough, you don't pay the prescription. Okay, cool. That's the main thing that most of us think of, right? As long as the poor are getting looked after, then we're pretty good on it. And the second part of it is, yeah, man, if you can afford it, you should have to pay, right? We don't like wealthy people getting things for free. You dig even just a little bit deeper. If you're not as wealthy, you probably work a harder, menial job. Your diet's not as good, and your housing sucks. It's not as warm. It's not as dry. Maybe you got black mold in your house, that sort of thing, because your landlord's a prick. So you get sick more often. You need medicine more often. If you're wealthy, you don't have to deal with any of these things. You don't need prescriptions as often. So his whole thing, it's predicated on the fact that everyone gets sick equally, which is not true.
Yeah.
The second part of this is, when you get a policy like this, and there's like, let's just across the board, just waive prescription charges. You have eliminated a cost of administration and a massive one. You just go, same rule for everyone. It's kind of one of the things that we come back to when we talk about UBI, right? Is a lot of the savings there is by eliminating something that he hates, bureaucracy. Well, apparently he hates it. He keeps on putting more in. But this is the thing. As it sounds good on a bumper sticker, it doesn't translate out into the real world. Or another thing he loves, a balance sheet, a profit and loss statement, if you will. It's just shallow thinking.
Do you know what?
It's ideological rather than practical.
I agree with you about the bureaucracy in general. I don't think this is a case for that. Like, you got on a community services card and you go to the doctor, you pay less than someone who's not on one. So I think the bureaucracy around this, the actual implementation of it, is not that big of a deal. You go up to your chemist, if you're not already in the system as having a community service card, you show them your community service, and they push the button that says community service, not the button that says cash. That's literally all it is. I do agree with you in general. And let me also just say, me saying I support this is not actually me saying I'm against everyone getting free. I have no problems with everyone getting their prescriptions for free. None whatsoever. But also, I guess what I'm trying to do is to point out the inconsistent ideas behind this man who's happy to apply the wealthy can pay here and subsidise the poor in this instance, when in many other instances in life, he seems to be quite against that. And so his inconsistency is something I'm trying to highlight, I guess, is what I'm doing here.
No, absolutely. And it highlights the fact that he's not a deep thinker. He's never had to deal with this. He's never been in this position.
Stay positive.
Ideological notes rather than practical solutions.
Just to help your conspiracy theorist, I think stay positive's got it nailed out. So this is actually Chippy's master plan. So he's gonna bring in socialism whilst pulling the strings via Christopher Luxon. Hey, this has got some more though.
Chippy all along.
It was Chippy all along. Let's get to the end of this. Oops, here we go.
Then the tax accountant, not the pharmacist.
And what it means is we take that money and we're going to go spend that on 13 new cancer treatments that are available. Cancer treatment.
So the wealthy, quote unquote wealthy, are subsidising the poor. That's a wealth tax.
National Cancer Agency here says are important for us to have from Australia here in New Zealand.
No one's doubting the money's going to a good use, but pharmacists are saying, hey, we're not the ones who should be being the tax collector here. This is actually a job that you're giving us and it's taking up time and resources.
Yeah, again, we've had an approach which says we want targeted $5 prescriptions. People like me shouldn't be getting it subsidised, frankly. I'd sooner take that money and actually we've got a 15% higher mortality rate to Australians on cancer. Let's access those 13 cancer treatments.
I wonder if we can expand this now to Teslas, Chewy, you know? So people of wealth, of a certain income, they can pay more for their EV fee, and then people who aren't quite as well off, they can pay less. Those that have more can pay more. Those that have less can pay. Isn't that the same principle though? I'm just,
that sounds like a bit of consistency here. And just for being consistent, remember, I didn't have a problem with that because, again, we could draw a line there and go, don't look any further. It's the same. It's not the same. We know it's not the same.
Yeah.
There was an end goal with EVs, and that was to get more into the second-hand market, and which it very clearly has done. But yeah, it's again, he draws a straight line, right? As long as people, the rich people that do not get a lot of prescriptions, as long as they pay, that is going to fully fund these 13 cancer treatments that we can't at the moment afford. Show me the fucking workings on that.
Speaking of workings, we've got to get to Dave Rennie still. We're already at 20 to 10, so let's play the end of this one.
I'll shut the fuck up then.
Treatments through the National Cancer Control Agency that recommends them and get them working for New Zealanders.
But these are our frontline healthcare workers, right? Pharmacists would be considered a frontline healthcare worker.
Yeah, sure.
But they say their time's being wasted doing this.
Yeah, it's all about dollars, right? And so the question is, what do you do with the money? Why on earth would I pay? Why can't I pay $5 for my prescription? Why can't you pay $5 for your prescription? Why don't we actually support?
Why can't you pay full price for your Tesla? And those that aren't as well off than you, they can get a subsidy. What's the difference in the I know that I keep interrupting this and it's going to take us longer, but it's the same argument. Why can't Mr. Luxon pay full price for his Tesla and someone who's a family person with 2 kids get the EV subsidy? Same argument.
The people who need support and should get it subsidised, and take the money from people like you and me that would be subsidised and give it to cancer treatments that we desperately need in New Zealand. When you have a New Zealander on average having a 15% higher mortality rate around cancer than an average Australian, we have a cancer gap to close. And so I'm taking that money away from there. And I know it's a tough decision, but this is the kind of reality of government, is you make a choice because you're saying, I want that money to go get a better result for me by doing these things.